Connecticut delegation, which is incredible. I think on this issue and many others, you're the best delegation in the United States.
No guns were lost. They were stolen by an individual who's now in prison.
And of course, we've got a lot of criticism over this. So why is it not a machine gun?
In areas that are poor, mostly minority, there's a mass shooting.
You gave testimony that the brave ATF agents are the ones showing up at 2 in the morning after a burglary.
Breaking news, the Supreme Court's earth-shaking decision. Concealed carry law shattered as justice takes a bold new stance. Hold your breath as we delve into this historic twist. Background. The recent Supreme Court ruling concerning concealed carry laws has ignited a significant shift in the landscape of firearms regulations. In a landmark decision, the court struck down a state law that had previously prohibited non-residents from carrying concealed firearms within its borders. This ruling, with potentially far-reaching consequences, has set the stage for a potential chain reaction, potentially leading to the establishment of national concealed carry reciprocity. The ruling's origins stem from a Massachusetts district court case that has caught the attention of legal experts and gun rights advocates alike. Notably, this case marks one of the first instances in which a court leveraged the precedent set by the Supreme Court's decision in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. In the 6-3 Bruin decision, the court had laid the groundwork by establishing a precedent that could be used to challenge state restrictions on non-resident firearm carrying. The case at hand involves an individual from New Hampshire who held a valid license to carry concealed in his home state. While traveling through Massachusetts, he encountered legal trouble after being pulled over for suspected DUI and was found to be in possession of a concealed firearm. Massachusetts law stipulates that non-residents cannot carry concealed without obtaining a specific non-resident concealed carry license from the state.
As many of you out there, either parents, relatives, and/or victims yourself,
to do anything about what the president is doing to exercise that authority unconstitutionally, as was the case with student loans.
Because people buy hundreds of guns legally and then they sell them illegally.
The central issue of the case centered around the constitutional validity of Massachusetts' requirement for non-residents to acquire a separate concealed carry license. The plaintiff, Mr. Dean Donald, argued that his existing New Hampshire license should be recognized under the Second Amendment's protection and allow him to carry within Massachusetts without the need for an additional license from the state. The district court's decision echoed Mr. Donald's claims and ruled that Massachusetts could not enforce its non-resident concealed carry license requirement against him. Citing the Bruin decision as a precedent, the court found that the state's law infringed upon the individual's Second Amendment rights and therefore could not be applied to him. This ruling holds significant implications not only for the individual involved, but also for the broader debate surrounding concealed carry laws and Second Amendment rights. As the first domino in what could be a series of challenges against state restrictions, this decision opens the door to a potential nationwide reciprocity for concealed carry permits. The echoes of this case may reverberate through future legal battles and discussions surrounding firearms regulation, emphasizing the intricate interplay between individual state laws and federal constitutional principles. Concealed carry ruling impact. In a groundbreaking legal development, the Lowell District Court in Massachusetts has issued a pivotal ruling with potential ramifications for national concealed carry reciprocity. The case involves defendant Dean Donald, who faces charges under Massachusetts law for carrying a firearm without a license. Donald has put forth 3 key challenges to the law: a facial challenge arguing its unconstitutionality on its face, an as-applied challenge claiming its unconstitutionality as applied to him, and a contention that it violates protection against cruel and unusual punishment. Central to the case is the Supreme Court's recent decision in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, which has reshaped the landscape of Second Amendment interpretation and challenges to firearms statutes' constitutionality. The court acknowledges the pivotal role of the Bruin decision in redefining the relationship between the Second Amendment and existing firearms regulations, creating a framework for evaluating their constitutionality. A critical question is how the Bruin decision impacts the rights of individuals to carry firearms across state lines. Specifically, the case considers a scenario where a law-abiding resident of New Hampshire exercises Second Amendment rights while traveling in Massachusetts. Bruin's two-step analysis framework comes into play. Courts must first determine if an individual's conduct falls within the plain text of the Second Amendment. If it does, any government regulation must then be justified in line with the nation's historical tradition of firearms regulation. Donald's challenge revolves around his New Hampshire residency and possession of a valid concealed carry license from his home state. In contrast, Massachusetts law requires non-residents to obtain a separate concealed carry license. His as-applied challenge contends that the Massachusetts law encroaches upon his constitutional rights. This argument delves into the extent of the Second Amendment's reach and the implications of differing firearms regulations across states.
We can expect in the future that more people will be carrying handguns on the streets in places like Los Angeles, Boston, and New York City.
The broader impact of this ruling extends beyond the individual case. By leveraging the Bruin decision, the court challenges the prevailing landscape of state-specific concealed carry laws, potentially triggering a series of legal challenges against such regulations. This case could serve as a catalyst for the movement towards national concealed carry reciprocity, streamlining regulations for those seeking to carry concealed firearms across state lines. Overall, the Lowell District Court's ruling in the Dean Donald case has brought about a pivotal moment in discussions about Second Amendment rights, concealed carry laws, and the potential for a unified firearms regulatory framework. By invoking the Bruin decision, the court challenges the status quo of state-specific regulations and underscores the need for a comprehensive understanding of constitutional rights within an evolving legal context. As the echoes of this ruling resonate in future legal battles and policy debates, the prospect of national concealed carry reciprocity emerges as a subject of intense scrutiny and deliberation. Historical precedent in gun rights. In the context of Second Amendment rights and concealed carry regulations, a recent court ruling has spotlighted the pivotal role of historical precedent in determining the constitutionality of firearms regulations. The court's decision, which closely scrutinized the case of a defendant, underscores the obligation of the government to establish historical grounding in order to limit an individual's exercise of Second Amendment rights. At the crux of the matter is the government's responsibility to demonstrate a historical precedent that aligns with the regulation at hand. The court emphasizes that the government's burden entails tracing historical traditions that existed prior to, during, and subsequent to the founding of the nation. Such traditions should reflect a comparable pattern of regulation, which, if proven, could exempt the regulation from the Second Amendment's categorical command. The ruling elaborates that the defendant's conduct involving carrying a firearm unequivocally falls under the protection of the Second Amendment. Consequently, the burden shifts to the Commonwealth to validate the regulation by establishing its alignment with the historical trajectory of firearms regulation in the country.
June of 2021, you changed the Department's asylum rules so that it could apply to individuals with significant gang violence.
Most apparent here, a defense of the Second Amendment, which this most certainly is.
Wyme says the Missouri law exposes people to greater harm by interfering with the federal government's ability to enforce firearms regulations.
The court critically notes that the Commonwealth fails to present any historical precedent that confines the exercise of a federal constitutional right, such as carrying firearms, solely within the borders of the resident state. The court's assessment of the Commonwealth's arguments against the defendant's claim of equal protection violations is equally compelling. Prior to the precedent-setting Bruin decision, Massachusetts treated firearm carrying as a privilege. The distinction in treatment between residents and non-residents was pronounced, with non-residents being allowed to apply for licenses while not being afforded the same privileges as residents. The Commonwealth's contention that its licensing scheme imposes permissible burdens due to its interest in preventing certain individuals from possessing firearms is met with skepticism. The court draws attention to the existing federal law, 18 U.S.C. Section 922G, which already identifies categories of prohibited individuals nationwide. Given this federal legislation's applicability across the entire country, the court rebuffs the argument that Massachusetts regulation adds a justifiable layer of burden. Ultimately, the court concludes that the mere act of an individual lawfully exercising their constitutional right to bear arms while traversing through Massachusetts as a resident of New Hampshire should not render them a felon. The court underscores that the recent Bruin decision has established a precedent necessitating the issuance of licenses unless specific disqualifications are present. In this district court ruling, Massachusetts' attempt to enforce non-resident concealed carry licenses faces comprehensive scrutiny and ultimate rejection. The court's meticulous analysis highlights the interplay between historical precedent, federal legislation, and the categorical assertion of Second Amendment rights. As the legal landscape evolves, this decision leaves a notable imprint on the discourse surrounding firearms regulations and the constitutional guarantees that shape them. Crossing state lines. The court's decision highlights an unprecedented constitutional dilemma surrounding the right to bear arms when crossing state lines. The ruling sharply illuminates an extraordinary circumstance, a constitutional right that dissipates as an individual crosses their home state's border and enters another state. This peculiar scenario is exemplified by an individual who, while legally exercising their right within their own state, instantly transforms into a felon subject to a mandatory minimum sentence of incarceration upon entering another state.
Lawful gun owners are not the driving force behind criminal gun violence, and this is particularly true of concealed carry permit holders.
AK-47 is an automatic Kalashnikov model of 1947.
At the same time, as I outline in much greater detail in my written submission, they play a significant but underappreciated role.
You can prevent the next tragedy. You can save life. You can save families in the process.
This decision raises profound questions about the cohesiveness and consistency of constitutional rights across state lines. It not only showcases the perplexing nature of this constitutional anomaly, but also marks a milestone in legal history, potentially setting in motion a cascade of legal challenges to state laws in the context of concealed carry reciprocity. The outcome of these challenges remains uncertain, but their impact on the evolving discourse surrounding the Second Amendment and interstate gun rights is undeniable. Constitutional dilemma. The recent state-level trial court decision regarding the constitutional dilemma of concealed carry rights across state lines is a pivotal development that sparks discussions about legal precedents and potential nationwide implications.
That brewing is a thing from which the public must be protected. This is simply not true.
So other families will not have the experience and the pain and trauma that they had to live through.
For too long, states like New York told millions of citizens that their right to armed self-defense ended the moment they left their homes.
She proves you can run for office ending gun violence in the South and you can win.
While the immediate outcome of this case remains uncertain, its impact on the discourse surrounding the Second Amendment and interstate gun rights is undeniable. Overall, this trial court decision's broader implications underscore the potential for significant legal change, driven by the interplay between state and federal laws. As the case progresses through the state-level judiciary and potentially reaches the U.S. Supreme Court, it exemplifies the legal system's responsiveness to contemporary issues and evolving perspectives on constitutional rights. Whether it will be the catalyst for a shift towards national concealed carry reciprocity or simply a localized precedent remains to be seen. However, its resonance within the legal sphere is undeniable, sparking conversations about the cohesiveness of constitutional rights in a nation characterized by diverse state regulations. Public safety concerns. In the aftermath of the recent groundbreaking Supreme Court decision to eliminate concealed carry laws, a pressing concern that emerges is the potential impact on public safety. The ruling, which dismantles state restrictions on concealed carry, raises questions about how this shift might influence the safety landscape across the nation. With the removal of concealed carry laws, the concern centers on the potential for an increase in armed individuals carrying firearms without the previously mandated permits or background checks. While the decision underscores Second Amendment rights, critics fear that it could also pave the way for an environment where firearms are more accessible without the rigorous checks and balances that concealed carry laws once provided. The newfound ability for non-residents to carry concealed firearms across state lines could lead to challenges in tracking and regulating armed individuals, particularly those visiting from states with more lenient firearms regulations. This raises alarm bells about the ease with which potentially dangerous individuals might carry firearms without undergoing the vetting processes that were previously in place. Another dimension of the debate pertains to law enforcement's ability to distinguish between lawful and unlawful firearm carriers. The decision to eliminate concealed carry laws might create confusion and complicate the efforts of law enforcement officers tasked with maintaining public safety. Officers may need to adapt their protocols and approaches to engage with individuals who might be legally armed under the new legal landscape. However, proponents of the ruling argue that responsible firearm owners contribute to public safety as they possess the means to protect themselves and potentially deter criminal activity. They contend that the ruling aligns with the fundamental right to self-defense and levels the playing field for individuals seeking to safeguard themselves and their loved ones.
We are not finished. We are not finished. We are not finished.
The submitted firearm brace, when attached to a firearm, does not convert that weapon to be fired from the shoulder and would not alter the classification.
Not one more! Not one more! Not one more!
Distribution of 10 to 40 million of these braces and the implementation of your rule. Did Congress pass a law?
Yet the concern remains that the elimination of concealed carry laws might blur the line between responsible gun ownership and potential risks to public safety. The absence of uniform regulations across states could lead to a patchwork of differing standards that law enforcement agencies and citizens must navigate. As a result, states with stricter gun control measures may find themselves grappling with the challenge of reconciling their regulations with those of neighboring states with more permissive policies. In decision, the Supreme Court's decision to eliminate concealed carry laws opens a discourse on the intricate balance between Second Amendment rights and public safety considerations. While proponents hail the ruling as a victory for individual liberties, critics express concerns about the potential for heightened risks in an environment with less stringent regulations. The evolving landscape will undoubtedly prompt ongoing discussions about responsible gun ownership, state-to-state reciprocity, and the imperative of maintaining public safety amidst the reshaped legal framework. Voices of dissent. The recent Supreme Court decision eliminating concealed carry laws has ignited a spirited exchange of opinions among the justices, reflecting a broader divergence in perspectives on Second Amendment interpretation. The ruling, which appends state restrictions on concealed carry, has garnered both support and dissent, underscoring the nuanced complexities of constitutional interpretation. In a deeply divided court, the justices' varied opinions offer insights into the ideological underpinnings that shape their stance on firearms regulation. Those supporting the decision emphasize the importance of upholding the individual's right to bear arms without unnecessary hindrances. They contend that the ruling is rooted in safeguarding personal liberties, allowing law-abiding citizens the means to protect themselves and their families without undue government intrusion. Conversely, the dissenting voices voice concerns about potential implications for public safety. Justices in this camp worried that the ruling might open the floodgates for individuals to carry firearms without undergoing the scrutiny that concealed carry laws formally required. They emphasize the need to strike a balance between Second Amendment rights and ensuring that responsible gun ownership is aligned with rigorous background checks and permitting processes.
And having to tell her that other 9-year-olds were just killed in a shooting is horrific.
Get on the ground now!
I'm a federal agent.
917-110-3.
I'm a federal agent.
Get on the ground!
Real background checks could stop a lot of illegal guns going in different places in the country.
For them, the ruling might inadvertently weaken the safeguards in place to prevent firearms from falling into the wrong hands. This divergence highlights the inherent complexity of Second Amendment jurisprudence. Justices' opinions are shaped by their interpretations of historical context, the intention of the framers, and contemporary societal considerations. The ruling's impact on law enforcement, public safety, and the broader fabric of society are subjects that weigh heavily on the minds of these legal scholars as they grapple with the broader implications of their decision. Firearms regulation paradigm shift. The Supreme Court's decision to eliminate concealed carry laws heralds a significant paradigm shift in the realm of firearms regulation. This watershed moment is poised to reverberate across states, sparking discussions about how the legal landscape might evolve and what lies ahead for Second Amendment rights and gun control measures. The ruling ushers in a new era in which non-residents are granted expanded concealed carry rights, a prospect that is met with both enthusiasm and trepidation. Proponents hail it as a triumph for individual freedoms and the right to self-defense, asserting that responsible gun owners can act as a deterrent to criminal activity. However, the decision's critics fear that it could undermine the delicate balance between individual rights and public safety by potentially allowing firearms to circulate without robust regulatory oversight. As states grapple with the ruling's implications, the question of reciprocity takes center stage. The concept of national concealed carry reciprocity, in which states honor the concealed carry licenses issued by other states, gains renewed attention. This seismic shift raises concerns about discrepancies between states with strict firearms regulations and those with more permissive laws. The potential for a patchwork of varying standards underscores the complexity of harmonizing the divergent regulatory frameworks. Law enforcement agencies are faced with the challenge of adapting to this altered landscape. Officers may need to recalibrate their approaches to engage with legally armed individuals, given the variance in licensing requirements and regulations across state lines. This recalibration is essential to ensure both public safety and the rights of law-abiding citizens. In decision, the Supreme Court's decision triggers a reevaluation of firearms regulation on a national scale. The ruling's implications extend beyond the courtroom, transcending into the fabric of society and law enforcement practices. As the legal and societal discourse unfolds, the path ahead remains uncertain. What is certain, however, is that the decision marks a defining moment in the ongoing dialogue about the delicate balance between individual liberties and collective security in the context of firearms regulation. Rights in focus. The recent Supreme Court ruling, which annuls concealed carry laws, has thrown the spotlight on the delicate interplay between Second Amendment rights and public safety. This landmark decision, echoing through legal corridors, brings into sharp focus the rights of individuals to bear arms versus the imperative of maintaining societal security. The annulment of concealed carry laws reflects a seismic shift in the understanding of the Second Amendment. Proponents of the ruling champion it as a victory for individual liberties, contending that responsible citizens should have unfettered access to firearms for self-defense. Yet the implications are far-reaching. Critics of the ruling voice concerns about a potential surge in unregulated firearm possession, potentially undermining painstakingly established protocols to prevent firearms from landing in the hands of those unfit to possess them. The decision's significance reverberates beyond the courtroom, necessitating a careful recalibration of law enforcement practices. Police officers must now navigate encounters with legally armed individuals under a new legal framework. This recalibration aims to balance individual rights with public safety imperatives, underlining the evolving nature of policing in a nation grappling with changing gun regulations. Behind the verdict. Delving into the rationale behind the Supreme Court's decision to eliminate concealed carry laws unveils a complex tangle of constitutional interpretation, historical context, and societal implications. The court's ruling reflects a deeply divided bench, with justices articulating divergent perspectives on the boundaries of Second Amendment rights and the role of regulations. The ruling, rooted in the precedent set by the Bruin decision, underscores the evolving nature of firearms regulation. Justices supporting the decision emphasize the preservation of individual liberties, maintaining that responsible gun owners are crucial for personal protection and deterring criminal activity.
Shall not be infringed, and the word infringe means by banning parts on firearms actually is against the Constitution.
Affect us here, and it was such a breath of fresh air for the Second Amendment people.
It takes extraordinary courage for them to stand up here and retell the story.
Anti-gunners put in there to keep the guns out of the hands of lawful citizens in New York State.
On the other hand, dissenting justices raise flags about the potential erosion of safeguards against unchecked firearm possession and its implications for public safety. This decision holds the potential to catalyze a broader re-examination of gun laws across states, with the question of reciprocity looming large. As the nation grapples with the intricacies of this transformation, the ruling's ramifications ripple across legal, law enforcement, and societal spheres. The ruling and its aftermath are emblematic of the perpetual tension between safeguarding individual rights and ensuring the collective safety of the community. Second Amendment interpretations. The recent Supreme Court decision resonates with the deep cultural divides that shape the U.S.'s interpretation of the Second Amendment. This ruling, nullifying concealed carry laws, amplifies the clash between divergent viewpoints on gun rights and public safety. Proponents of the decision view it as a triumph for individual freedoms, emphasizing the historical significance of an armed citizenry as a safeguard against tyranny. This perspective aligns with the cultural thread rooted in self-reliance and personal protection. Conversely, opponents express concerns about the potential for increased firearm accessibility without stringent regulations. This viewpoint resonates with a cultural inclination toward collective security and preventing gun violence. The decision magnifies the enduring tension between these cultural inclinations. It underscores the complexity of reconciling personal liberties with broader societal well-being. The ensuing discourse will navigate these cultural divides, shaping the nation's ongoing dialogue about the Second Amendment's parameters and its impact on American life. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.